Besides committing professional malpractice, just what is Attorney General Pam Bondi telling Donald Trump about the court rulings against his administration in the immigration and deportation area? Because you can't possibly be telling him that he's lost every case at the Supreme Court, 6-3, 7-2, 9-0, where it matters. She can't possibly be telling him that because he's been flip-flopping about what his powers are and about what his requirements are under the due process to facilitate the return of Armando Abrego Garcia from a gulag in El Salvador. So what is she telling him? Because he continues to throw his Department of Justice under the bus and says, I would do it. I'd gladly do it. I would always abide by the Supreme Court, but my Attorney General, I'm Michael Popok, you're on Legal AF. Let's first, while you're here, hit the subscribe button before I get into the meat and heart of this hot take. First, there's an evolution over the last 10 days of Donald Trump and his positioning about Abrego Garcia and his power or lack of power to get the guy back. I mean, Abrego Garcia's lawyers at the American Civil Liberties Union have made it clear in all of their filings and recent filings that Trump and the Trump administration have joint custody at worst with the El Salvadoran government. And they can't just say, we can't get him back. I don't know. We dropped him off. We didn't keep a receipt. Sorry. Can't. It's like you show up at a store without a receipt. Got no receipt for him. Can't get him back. You're paying $6 million to house these people. You're telling me there's not an agreement or a contract? You just backed up the truck and dumped him off and that was it? Nobody believes that. Nobody believes that. So let's look at the three iterations back to back to back of Donald Trump. In the press conference, that scripted, ghoulish affair, scripted by Stephen Miller, where they flew up the dictator of El Salvador, Bukele. They stuck him in and talk about inappropriate clothing. Poor Zelensky, wartime president. He wears some sort of camouflage and fatigues. Don't you own a suit? You know, Elon Musk shows up wearing a t-shirt and a sport coat, like some sort of, no offense, some sort of Uber driver, double parked in Manhattan. And there comes Bukele, black t-shirt and a sport coat. And what is this ridiculous pitch and catch? Bukele says, I would never smuggle a terrorist into the United States, and I would never ask you to. Ho, ho, ho. Second clip is Donald Trump with Terry Moran a couple of days ago, ABC, in which Terry says, there's a phone. You got a phone on your desk. We're sitting in front of your desk. He's got a phone. You got a phone. Everybody, all God's children's got phones. Pick up the phone. Call him. Well, I would, Terry, if he wasn't a criminal, an MS-13 tattooed on his fingers. Well, that was a fake meme photo created in deep fake that you circulated. Well, I don't know anything about that. But if my lawyers told me to do it, you know, he actually, that's the second clip. I got clip happy there. And my third clip is going to be his interview with Kristen Welker this past Sunday, in which he says, I have the power. I have the power to bring him back if my attorney general would tell me to. Let's play the three clips in sequence. Boom, boom, boom. Let's go.
How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous.
You could get him back. There's a phone on this desk.
I could.
You could pick it up, and with all the power of the presidency, you could call up the president of El Salvador and say, send him back right now.
And if he were the gentleman that you say he is, I would do that.
But the court has ordered
not.
you to facilitate that.
I'm not the one making this decision. We have lawyers that don't want to do this.
But the buck stops in this office.
No. I follow the law. You want me to follow the law? If I were the president that just wanted to do anything, I'd probably keep him right where he is.
Supreme Court.
Well, you say you have the power to bring him back, though. Your attorney general says, quote, that's up to El Salvador. Just to put a fine point on this, do you have the power to bring Abrego Garcia back as the Supreme Court?
Well, I have the power to ask for him to come back if I'm instructed by the attorney general that it's legal to do so. But the decision as to whether or not he should come back will be the head of El Salvador. He's a very capable man.
In a separate print interview, Donald Trump told, it was either the Atlantic or the Time magazine reporter, that effectively nobody's ever asked him to make the phone call. I would do it. No one's ever asked me that. That's a very good question you're asking. You're the first person, the interviewer, first person that's ever said I should make that kind of phone call. That's very interesting. You know who's watching all of this? Giggling, laughing, and getting upset all at the same time? Federal Judge Paula Zinnes in Maryland, presiding over the Abrego Garcia case. and the United States Supreme Court. I don't know if Donald Trump has noticed. It's getting worse for him, not better. 6-3, he effectively loses because the Supreme Court says you got to give due process to everybody that gets sent to a gulag outside the country or in any way. The same due process that Donald Trump tells Kristen Welker in a separate clip where he says, I don't know. Do I have to do due process? I don't even know. Okay. So he loses 6-3 on that. He then loses 9-0, supporting Judge Zinnes, where the Supreme Court says everything she ruled, including upholding the rule of law and due process and all of that is right. This is the same due process. Donald Trump was like, well, I don't know about due process. All right. But and facilitating the release from an El Salvadoran prison, also right. Then he loses 7-2 in a related case about trying to take more people to El Salvador from America without due process. And the Supreme Court says, ground the planes. We're red tagging the job. You're done. And still hasn't lifted the red tag to allow planes to fly. So Donald Trump's all confused. So what is the premise of my hot take? What is Pam Bondi or Stephen Miller telling her? I have a working theory. Trump doesn't really respect Pam Bondi. That's why he said early on in his administration this time around that he, Donald Trump, felon-in-chief, was the chief law enforcement officer of the United States of America, that he runs the executive branch and everything in it, and everything the eye can see, including Pam Bondi. See, only a person who has no self-respect and no self-esteem would take a job like that to be a dependent, not independent attorney general under Donald Trump. So he sees it. He sees she'll lick whatever boot he says to lick at whatever time. And so she's, all right, whatever. So now you've got who? Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller's not even a lawyer, but he formed a law firm that was suspiciously named America First Legal, AF Legal. Yeah, we thought about suing them, to be frank. And so he forms this thing, and we know now from other reporting that he is effectively the domestic policy president of the United States. We thought it was Elon Musk swinging that big demolition hammer, but it's really Stephen Miller. It's been Stephen Miller all along. It's been Barzini all along, to paraphrase The Godfather. And Stephen Miller's Barzini. You can look it up. And so Stephen Miller is lying to the president of the United States. He's telling him misinterpretations, because he's not a lawyer, about what the Supreme Court's ruling. He's overemphasizing certain dicta without emphasizing the holding in the case, the ruling in the case. See, let me just give a quick tutorial on how to read a memorandum opinion or an opinion of a court like the Supreme Court, or an order, a decision, an order. Okay. There are the holding, which is, and sometimes the judges will say, we therefore hold, but sometimes you have to find it. It's the actual pronouncement, legal pronouncement of the court. They hold as follows. And that has to be followed here and in other cases for precedent. But then you have sort of dicta, which is discussion that's interesting, but doesn't go to the heart of the holding necessarily, but was discussed in quote unquote dicta. And sometimes people will point to, oh, look at that section where they said that. And so, well, that was really in dicta, meaning that was just like a clearing their throat on the way to the holding. But you can't rely on it because that wasn't the holding. And then there's the ratio, which is sort of the point of the opinion, the underlying jurisprudential analysis that supports the holding. And you have to, it takes years of study and to get good at this, to figure out with a surgeon knife and a fighter pilot focus how to dissect an opinion. Stephen Miller's not good at that. Stephen Miller's not good at that. He's good at sloganeering and yellow journalism and making people hate other Americans. He's good at that. And so he's telling him, he's, as I've said before, everybody's treating Donald Trump like a mushroom. They're putting him in the dark and they're feeding him a load of crap. And that's where he's at right now. Now, he allows himself to be there to give himself to some sort of deniability. Well, I would do it, as you heard in the clip, but my attorney general, I don't know why I made him Foghorn Leghorn from the Warner Brothers cartoons. I would do it if they would have let me. Yeah, okay. So it's obvious that Pam Bondi and Stephen Miller are lying to Donald Trump. It's willful. It's willful blindness. He doesn't want to hear the truth. He doesn't want to hear the results. He wants to be able to go on these television shows and lie to the American people, because telling the truth is hard. Complying with his constitutional obligations harder still. But we'll continue to call him out right here, every way we can, in the Midas Touch universe, in the Legal AF universe that you're now a part of. And while you're here, hit the free subscribe button. And if I told you, not only are we building, with your help, this channel to 700,000 subscribers, I think by next week, honestly. But we're also building a Legal AF Substack community, which overlaps. We're going to hit 10,000, I think, in about a week or so with your help. We just formed it a week ago. And there I'm placing, along with the other contributors, all of the key pieces of information and docket entries that you want, the court filings and the brief filings. And then I do a kind of a white paper briefing in the morning called Morning AF. What else? So join us on Legal AF, the Substack as well. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.